he went and took and put his big butt, that big, and put it through a hole that big in the box. And I looked in, and he was just in the back of it. And I thought, well, that was rather strange. So the next day, I went to put a camera in there to see what was going on. He wasn't in there, and so I was putting the camera in there. And the first thing I did is put my finger in coon poop. That was interesting. And then after I licked it off my fingers, I went and noticed there was a pup in there. There was a little baby raccoon in there. I thought, okay. And then I was watching the video of the security camera video, and there was two of them. After I licked it off my fingers, okay. And so I waited. I researched, and it said, wait 2 days is usually the cutoff for whether a baby raccoon needs to be assisted in living or not. That means that mama's abandoned them. Well, 2 days went by, and they never came to get the kits or anything, or to feed them or anything. And they were screaming like crazy, and they even came up on the porch and looked over at the box. Mrs. Grabby now didn't go in. Didn't even check. Didn't even sniff it or nothing. So ended up doing a couple inquiries and stuff, and found a lady that would take them, and did that. So then I had been sick with a UTI. I mean, viciously sick. And I finally went outside and mowed. And as I was mowing, I looked up on my roof, and I seen some shingles moved. And I thought, well, we had like 44-mile-an-hour winds there for a while, steady. And I was like, okay, that's not a big deal. And it looked like there was a spot where the asphalt, the pre-asphalt stuff, I mean, the coating that you put on before you put your asphalt down, the black scrim stuff.
Yeah, the felt. Yeah.
Yeah, the felt. Yeah. And so that's what it looked like, and I didn't think nothing of it. So I went up there to look at it to see what I had to do, and it wasn't. It was a big hole. The raccoons, whoever put the original roofing in, they didn't do a very good job at the top. So water's been leaching, not pouring down, just leaching for quite a few years underneath. So that area is a little not mushy to where you fall through or anything, but you can feel it giving. And so they ate through my roof in a soft spot. And so I proceeded to put just temporarily put a piece of plywood down, because I don't have money to fix it. So I put a piece of plywood down, put tar around it and everything. And so I was like, okay, that's cool. Got that fixed. And next day, I looked up there. I was like, what? Went up there. They ate a hole right next to it. And so,
amazing.
Rather than be chasing holes all summer, fix the next one, then they eat another hole, fix the next one, eat another hole.
Yeah.
I put a pail over top of it. Do I need to shut up, DT?
No, well, we're good. I mean, you shared the raccoon story with YouTube.
Oh, okay, but I'll finish it real quick. Then
because they're digging the story in the chat.
Okay, so then I went.
Man.
Yeah, then I went and put. You know how you get the clear tubs at like Dollar General and stuff to put clothes in or whatever, and I flipped it over and cut a little doorway in it so it's pointing downwards, and I tarred it and screwed it to the roof over the hole they just made. And so that way, if it rained, it would come down, but it wouldn't go in. And so I've got video, and I put my security camera up there. I got some pretty cute videos and stuff. I'm going to probably post it on my YouTube. But I watched them come and go. And they went in and took out 3 kits. And so I was like, cool, they're getting out of my attic. So then once I knew they were gone, then I could seal it up. And so they did that, and I didn't see them come back. And then later the next morning, I heard squalling. And I was like, okay, they got one more to get, so I'll leave everything alone. And I went and left it alone and had to go to my mom's for the day, and I came back and it was still there, and there was no video on the security of the mama coming back. So I went and accessed the attic, and the kit had went in a roll of carpet, a little short remnant roll, went down inside of it and was stuck. So the mama probably couldn't get it out because it was too far for her to reach in, and it was the kit didn't know what to do. So I got it out, and so now I've got it in my bathroom. And then after we're done here, I'm going to take it to a rehab girl.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello, how you doing, big bud?
Doing good.
Now let me tie it in transition. So, what distro did you introduce them to, and what are they running?
Well, the first two, Emmett and Luke, they're both starting out with Crunchbang because I want them to really experience it. Now, this one here is a lot more intelligent, and so I've recommended it use Gentoo.
Ha 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 ha. Whenever I hear Gentoo, I laugh my ass off.
Careful, two
Wow.
more times and Josh will show up.
Mm.
I hope
Yeah,
he does. He's actually
Shots fired.
Gentoo.
Oh boy. So YouTube is
He's still setting up Zoom, so he should probably join.
cool.
Okay.
okay.
It's compiling.
So YouTube is okay now? They can hear us?
Yep. It's all good.
So what was the
Okay,
final thing, DT?
The problem with my video there was a totally separate problem from the audio. That was me basically killing OBS, restarting, and choosing a different scene basically to stream from. I don't know. I don't know what the other problem was, but the scene we were on before on the previous stream wasn't working the second time I started it. It was very weird. I don't know. But it's Arch. There was an update I took yesterday, and I rebooted the computer this morning. And typically I know not to reboot right before I stream, because if everything's kind of working, don't take a reboot and then immediately start streaming on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's always I've done it enough times I know better. Or just don't take the update at all until you're done streaming, right? But a lot of times I'll take an update, reboot, and then start a stream, and it's always an issue.
Yeah. So back to the subject we were talking about, PewDiePie's video. There's one thing I wanted to say that keeps breaking the video for whatever reason, is the way he was using Hyperland made me knock my head against the wall. He's been using Linux only a couple of months, and he's doing better than most people who've been trying Hyperland for almost a year. So he did a great job, and his message was received by more people than anyone, and I fell in love with his even his cinnamon.
The chat, somebody in the chat said they can't hear me.
So he did a great. Okay,
Unless
so
he's
every time I
messing
mention the
with us.
PewDiePie video, the
more
stream breaks. I'm not going to mention it again. Anyone.
Well, he's probably done more for Linux than all the combined people have put effort into marketing
The chat,
and advertising Linux.
I don't know. I'm previewing the stream. I can hear me, so I don't know. I don't know what the comment was about.
I think he was messing with us.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Somebody just said that they can hear you, DT.
Yeah, because usually my audio is less of a problem than y'all's. So
King and queen in Elven Gardens.
I'm going to try to do better of paying attention to the chat, because sometimes I miss it.
Oh, here's Josh. How are you, Josh? Okay.
Let's see. There we go. Hey, sound works out of the box for the first time on Zoom in forever.
Oh, yeah, don't bring that up. It's bedtime. We had about a 30-minute delay because of audio.
Yeah, so I don't know why, but whenever I pull up one of these patron chats, you guys are just chanting Gentoo, and I don't know why.
That was it was him, Dad.
It was
Yeah,
oddly
yeah.
timed. I can
There
tell
was
you
no
that
you
much.
guys were chanting Gentoo. There was one person, Steve, for whatever reason, wanted to take shots at Gentoo.
And then him dead did the 3. So
Yeah.
Of course he did.
Like I never go after distros, you know, and try to trash them on camera. Like I'm not one of those people that are gonna hate on Gentoo like Steve just did.
I
Now,
have a
Slackware I might
respect
hate
for
on,
it.
but we'll
I have a respect for it because of the difficulty and the challenge that it is. But it's one of those things where even I know my limitations.
Well, just to let you know, I'm using Nix.
oh,
You using
And I will tell you right now.
we thought you were compiling Zoom.
I will tell you right now that Nix is harder to use than Gentoo because
Wait,
Gentoo actually has documentation.
you
Josh,
using
you already
Zany OS?
switched?
Yeah, it's called NixOS Infect. Just run a single command, it just takes over the system.
What about are you running Zany OS?
No, it is literally just NixOS with a KDE desktop because that's just the configuration that I had.
The default, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Arch Penguin runs NixOS for his gaming rig. He said NixOS is great for gaming.
NixOS is pretty good. You want to run Xmonad and Haskell and all of that. They're
It takes figuring out how the Nix programming language works. That's really it. That said, NixOS works for gaming just about as well as any other distro works for gaming. It's just some requires more configuration than others. So I don't understand like the whole debate as to why NixOS is so great for gaming when it's just another Linux distro.
you could always just use GNU Geeks. That way you can just use Scheme. Since I know you love Lisp, so
That is true. I have been tinkering with Geeks with that said, I had to make use of the repository that shall not be named that I will not link to.
you can't talk about it because they
well,
will get very mad if you mention that non-free repository that includes the real kernel. Which
you went too far.
everybody
You went
has
too
to-
far. You went too far.
Oh, and the NVIDIA drivers. Let's not mention those as well. So,
We're putting him dead in sleep.
Well, I on the other hand hate NixOS.
Well,
okay.
that's fine. It's fine.
Shots
to,
fired at another distro. This is going to be great.
It's fine to hate on. It's fine to hate distros and because
Steve, mute yourself.
Yeah.
Give us enough time, and we'll install every distro by the end of the stream. So give us.
Well, there is a very simple reason. Like NixOS almost caused me to drop Linux.
Oh wow,
That's hardcore.
I hated that experience. It's one of the worst. It's the worst experience I had on Linux.
I would give it the worst. I mean, it's not something I
I
use.
would.
I tried it for a while. One of the things that Tyler Zaney explained, he says NixOS isn't actually an operating system; it's a package manager.
No, it is an operating system.
NixOS
Nix
not even
is
it's an operating system, yes, but at the end of the day, it's a configuration file.
Mhm.
yeah.
Built around a package manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That deploys a distro. And then it's a distro.
I mean,
Sorry to tell you.
I guess at the end of the day, you could say Arch is really Pac-Man, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And Debian is basically the bootstrap and the package, and that's it.
Yeah, Debian
But that's
is
not-
basically if you want new packages, you're going to have to use some other repos other than.
But that's not the
Debian's-
point. That's not the point. Like, at the end of the day, a Linux distro is basically 3 directories: /usr, /etc, and /boot. That's what Linux distribution or Linux in entirety is. And even at that point, /boot is not the distro, just /etc and /usr, because everything else
Yeah.
you could delete and distro would still work, because you just those 2 directories you need to splatter onto the drive and you get the exact
Yeah.
same.
Now, one of those
configuration.
directories you just mentioned is not like the other. users should not go play in /boot. Just putting that
Man.
out there.
Yes.
But-
Also, users shouldn't go play in /USR either.
Why not? No, I disagree. I hang out there all the time.
I don't, because I know what the directory is supposed to do. It's supposed to be for things that aren't managed by the user. That's why OPT exists. That's why etc exists, and that's why local directories, local equivalent to /USR exists in your home directory.
I'm not crazy about the .local directory in my home directory. I try to keep that clean. Plus,
just throw everything in /opt. It's fine.
Yeah, I used to do that, actually. I used to try to throw everything in /opt, but then that gets kind of messy.
Doesn't Red Hat do that by default?
No.
No,
I don't
Isn't
think
there
so.
a distro that does do it by default, throws everything in opt?
Usually they only do that if they're compiling like a third-party package that's not in a repo.
Right.
I know
Then
that
they'll throw that in.
I know that if you're installing a deb package manually on Ubuntu, it will throw it usually throws it into /opt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's not managed by, yeah.
Well, I know it
Anything
always.
that didn't get installed by apt typically is
No.
going to be.
Yeah.
even then it shouldn't, because of how
A lot of times when you configure make
works.
install, you'll put that in /opt.
Yeah,
I know.
that's where those kind of components should go. Not /users should be managed only and only by programs like package manager. That's what it's supposed to be, like the base of your system.
No.
Yeah,
Orange Penguin says it uses opt for app images. App images, they have a directory that you're supposed to use. The applications directory, whatever, applications with a capital A.
Yeah, I know that crossover deb file, when you install it, it's you have to use the gdeb or deb installer in MX Linux, and it automatically puts it in opt. Used to, doesn't now.
Personally put everything into either opt or local /bin or whatever.
Yep.
Because it is also discovered by Pat, and it works very well. I don't have to actually touch the rootfs if I don't need to, because that's the point. I don't want to destroy my distro, my system. My system needs to survive and work, and it's a lot easier to wipe my home directory than to find all the bits and pieces wherever they are on the rootfs.
Yeah, but most Linux systems are kind of hard to break. When you say you don't want to break your distro, I mean, what are you doing?
Playing around.
You don't know what all I did for a job. I meant for a couple of weeks I basically had to, not because I broke it, because that's how it goes, had to reinstall weekly.
Well,
but then again,
if I'm allowed to talk here for a minute here,
go ahead.
My root installs are disposable.
Yeah, mine too.
I break stuff all the time. In
mine
fact,
too. That's
to get NixOS to boot. I'm running everything through a mounted RAM disk. I'm using 97 gigs of memory.
Why?
Right now.
Why?
Because Zoom for some reason wants to use 60 gigs.
Well, no. I mean, I understand it's an Electron app, but there's no way Zoom is using that much RAM.
That's how much HTOP says that it's using. So hey, whatever.
HTOP is broken on Nix. Then it's not reporting right.
Well, I forgot what I wanted to say. What we were talking about before that?
You breaking a system.
Oh yeah. At one point, I was working on things for work, and I had to maintain examples, which meant using different versions of different languages for weeks. And sometimes I switch between versions daily, because Linux package managers are so great at doing their job. There was so many leftovers that it was impossible to clean, which then meant that at one point I couldn't install new things because there were so many leftovers. I literally had to reinstall on a weekly basis for a couple of weeks, if not twice a week. Welcome
Yeah.
to how well the traditional package managers actually
Well, I've
work.
run into that situation
on
where
their
I end up
stuff.
with like thousands of files all over the file system that are no longer managed by the package manager because I did weird things, and yeah, they're a pain to get rid of.
I
They take a
didn't
lot
do
of-
weird things. I just installed, and when I stopped using it, I removed and installed a different version, which
Yeah.
should have, but it
And
didn't
just
because
Just a quick look at HTOP. Zoom is taking 1.3 gigs of RAM right now on my system, and I'm streaming. Like, what you doing, Josh? 60 gigs.
My entire operating system is booted in RAM right now, so maybe that's half the reason.
so
I'm running 720 megabytes on Zoom.
He's compiling as he's connected.
Yeah, that said,
So-
that said, if you want to get pissed off as to how slow your hard disk is, just boot something up in a RAM disk and just see how fast it is. That tells you how fast your computer actually is. It's just it's,
Make you
it's like
depressed.
turning off JavaScript on your browser and you just see suddenly your internet just works.
Why don't you
See,
just use a live USB stick? I mean,
Or
Technic-
do a
okay,
DOS
so-
RAM disk.
Technically, I am, because this is a Nix image that I set up a long time ago just to get me into a bootable environment to be able to install Gentoo while streaming it. Which it's NixOS installed onto a USB, but it's only a Nix store with /etc. Those are the only two
Yeah.
persistent volumes.
I keep an emergency USB stick with me at all
That's
times.
technically what this is, but this is an actual Linux installation running almost like a live image.
So yeah, that's one of the great things. One of the only great things Nix has is that it's like actually it instantiates your whole full system because of how it works. I am hoping to get to that functionality using something like Fedora Silverblue.
Oh, by the way, this USB stick that I keep, just in case people want to try Linux, friends, families, their Windows machines, it needs Linux, right? Had one 2 weeks ago. Was running Windows 11. Their computer is only like 6-7 years old. It's not an ancient machine, but it was taking like 2-3 minutes to open, like the browser. So they done got some malware installed. And basically,
That's a fairly old machine, by the way, 6-7 years.
not for Ubuntu LTS, because I put it on and things just work, and they seem happy with it. They don't miss Windows.
That's about the same age my server has.
You
And that
shouldn't
thing is
have to.
ancient.
No, a 6-year-old machine should not be garbage. That's
Well, it depends on what kind of machine you bought.
It also depends on use case, because if
Well,
you're
it's
still
like-
browsing,
we're
just
talking
the internet
about
and checking
we're talking
emails,
about elderly people that just want to browse the web.
Okay.
They
because-
shouldn't have to go buy a new computer.
At some
Because
point
if
in
you
time,
buy
the
a
web
t-
technologies will be in such a way that it's going to slow down.
Yeah, I mean, eventually.
In time,
But
but
there was no way I was going to, because they were seriously planning on going and buying a new computer. And I was like, no, you don't.
you don't
save you a lot of money
need-
right
Oh,
now.
I'm sure they could use an Amiga 500 with eyebrows, and they'd be fine.
Because let's remember, if you buy a $300 computer 6 years ago, that thing ain't doing
Right.
so well today.
One of the e-machines from Walmart. It wasn't anything that bad. It was.
That's the point. Like you cannot blanket say that that 6-year-old machine automatically is either garbage or still works well. You cannot.
In the
say
Linux
either
world, a
way.
6-year-old machine is rather new. Let's be real.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
It really is.
No, it's not.
There are people
I've
that are
got
running
10-year-old
15-year-old laptops right now.
And
Yes,
they're just now
yes,
getting
they are.
driver support for Wi-Fi.
Yeah, yes, they
Right.
are. But let me tell you a secret.
Uh.
Most people that run Linux run new systems.
This is
Yeah.
a Pinebook. It runs Gentoo.
Yes,
you know
it
how
does.
old the ARM CPU of a Pinebook is? It
Yes, I
it
do.
was
Because
designed.
I got one a couple of years ago, and
It
it
was-
runs like a dog.
Yeah,
It really does.
Well, I have a recommendation for you, Derek.
Hmm.
Get the NVMe adapter and install it in the book. It works so much better Except that it only takes like 6.5 hours to compile Firefox.
Yeah. Yeah. I was using Manjaro ARM, and it's like it's brutal.
Well, you're
Just how
using
slow
Arch,
everything is
of
on
course.
that.
Although that Pine book is almost as fast as a RISC-V processor is new today.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
it's still actually kind of impressive, like how fast it actually is when you give it like a proper storage device to actually boot from.
Yes,
Because
but
it's
George,
almost
you're
like you.
comparing Apple storages.
That's true. It's almost like using a 10-year-old laptop, which is a lot better than what it was.
It's a couple of steps better than just running Linux on a Pi. It's basically like it's just slightly better.
Although Pi 5 though is much better performance than
The Pi 5. Yeah.
Yeah, but all my accessories are still for Pi 4s. I'm not willing to buy Pi 5s yet.
I have one thing running.
What are they running for right now? Let me pull up Pi 5 on Amazon. $90.
Are they even
$90 to $99. Yeah.
Ooh, $90.
Although I'm going to put a RISC OS on a Pi.
You know what? That's not a terrible price, I guess.
And you can get the M.2 adapter where you can put like six M.2s in, or you can do it with you can get an adapter for SSDs for about $50 more.
okay?
My Pi 5 has a nice metal enclosure, and it has a bottom thing for an NVMe.
Don't those M.2 adapters go through the USB bus? Why not just use a fast USB stick?
I don't know.
Don't they go through PCIe?
Well, they might on the Pi 5, but I think on the Pi 4 they're through USB.
Yeah,
that's different.
If you had on Pi 4, if you have the compute module, not the actual like full board, it goes through PCIe, but on that it might go actually through the USB.
I'm looking at the specs on Pi 5 on their website. Connect to M.2 through PCI Express. Yeah, so I guess they are using PCI for that.
Nice.
Oh,
at least
okay.
it don't. But there are reasons you would want to use NVMe over USB instead of a USB stick, because USB stick has exact same problems as the SSD card, the horrible flash compared to high grade flash or relatively high grade flash in NVMe's.
You can buy like USB sticks that are designed for like server boot images that are actually a lot better than your normal USB stick. You pay for it, but you can get it, unlike flash cards.
But at that point you're probably just equally good off just buying an SSD.
What's a USB adapter? Okay.
Yeah, in the chat, people were asking about the PewDiePie Linux video. I haven't watched it. I'm not interested in PewDiePie videos in general. It's not my, and you know.
It's been known for weeks now.
We're not going to mention it. We're not going to mention it here because every time we do, the stream
crashes. I mean, it makes sense why he would play with Linux anyway. I mean, he originally started as a gaming streamer or whatever. Well, if you're using Steam, or I'm sure he's probably tried Steam OS and things like that. He knows what Linux is. I'm sure he's fine using Linux.
Well, it's also been a known thing that he's been using a Linux distro for a few weeks now, because he posted like a video of him building a computer and people saw like an Ubuntu desktop.
Yeah,
It's
not a stretch for somebody like that to play with Linux a little bit. It's just knowing some of the content he's made in the past. So
it's just the rabbit hole that it invites.
Yeah.
I went down the rabbit hole in the late 90s, and here I am, 25 years later on that stream with a bunch of other Linux enthusiasts.
The main reason why I'm not a FreeBSD guy is because in 2008, the FreeBSD developer that gave my family our first computer could not get FreeBSD to boot on it, so he gave us Ubuntu instead.
Interesting.
Otherwise, I'd probably be a BSD guy.
That's what that's what Tyler's using now, is FreeBSD.
Things are a lot better now, but like most people, I played with FreeBSD a lot over the years, and I remember like 10 years ago, man, hardware support was rough, even with the free BSD kernel, which is the most popular of the BSD operating systems. Again, I'm sure it's improved a lot now, but like if you actually want all your hardware supported, I mean, the Linux kernel is kind of hard to beat.
That is it. It's an achievement.
Mm-hmm.
Like being that said,
I think the Linux kernel probably supports more stuff than the Windows kernel. I mean,
well,
let's be real. As far as just the amount of devices,
Windows is cutting out a lot of legacy devices,
right.
As well with Windows 11. But besides that, like it's surprising.
Well, we're removing stuff from the kernel. I mean, they're removing hundreds of thousands of lines from the kernel all the time.
You can still get i486 to boot with Linux.
Modern day Linux. Remember though, we still have to support things that are like 20 years old because they're still. It's just the nature of Linux. You know, we run really old stuff. Right? So,
well, I'll let you. I'll let you in on it. I'll let you in on a secret. I have installed Linux on a computer from 2003.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Gentoo still compiles to 486, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Gentoo actually has a handbook for it.
Probably on something that old. Tiny Core. Might be something to try out.
It's just a fun little thing to do, just to,
or maybe Puppy. Puppy's a little bit better than Tiny Core, especially if you actually want to use it. Since Tiny Core is really minimal and stripped down to the point it's you can't really use it as a desktop computer. But Puppy, you might.
Well, my concern is going to be the kernel version, because I know that there's some things about hardware support with kernel. So
if Linux current doesn't work, try the Linux LTS kernel, because I think even 5.15 is still supported.
Okay, because I know I was even thinking about finding. I mean, it's not going to be online, so I was thinking maybe like kernel version 2.4 or something.
Yeah, I mean, go back, say, to the old stable version of Debian, find out what kernel that's on, and you're still good to go back at least that far.
Current Debian stable is still 6.1.
The old stable, the one before that.
The one before that, that's I think 5.6.
Is it 5.9? I can't remember what it is. Yeah, it's the 5 series. I can't remember which one it was though. But that one's still supported, so you could even go back that far if you needed to.
Yeah, but this weird thing with kernels where people think that like the CachyOS kernel, the ZanMod kernel, and all these will magically give you a magical boost
to the gaming. Yeah, it's going to give you better frames.
Yeah,
it's the same argument that people have been making with Gentoo for years. It's like, oh, if you compile everything on your machine, it's going to be faster by 0.2%.
Yeah,
but
and I've literally I've never noticed a distro ever that I've tried that was faster or slower than the next distro with the same things installed. Obviously, if you're running, different desktop environment, some of them can run like a dog. But
it is possible in some regards that, yes, you could see noticeable improvements. Like, I know that if you're compiling a kernel, make sure that you check the box. That way you have CPU multi-threading, because if you forget to check the box, you'll only have one thread.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even on binary distros, I mean, they're building a kernel that's, properly built. They're, like, just get the generic kernel built from Arch. You're fine.
Funny enough, Linux actually started on 386.
Yeah. Arch started on 386 and eventually moved up to x86 64. And that's just what they've gone that direction since, because it makes sense for an upstream Linux distro like Arch to, support the latest hardware options, which nobody's really making i386 devices anymore.
No.
Yeah, Arch is a little quicker than a lot of other distros to move along and adopt new technologies and quit supporting older stuff. Arch was one of the very early adopters. We were talking about System D earlier as far as the knit systems. Arch was one of the first ones to jump on that train long before some of the others got on it.
Nobody gets mad at you for supporting new stuff. It's when you drop the old
Yeah.
stuff that even nobody, like less than like 0.1% or
Oh,
1/10 of 1%.
that's okay because those guys got to go to Arctics and do their thing. All 5 of them that were mad.
So I found an article from 2012 on ZDNet that said that Linux kernel 3.8 officially dropped 386 support.
No. Yeah.
Falcon in the chat wants to know why we're using headphones and not AirPods. My headphones probably sound better than DT's headphones.
I'm using AirPods.
It's debatable.
I don't know.
Wanna
I've got
know-
the Sennheisers.
These are
You
Audio
should fix
Technicas.
these.
I'm actually using it's not a headphones and it's not Beats, but it's kind of that in between where it's, it straps around my neck and it's the smaller pieces into my ear. But I do have headphones I could switch to, so I can add to that.
Yeah.
I will say, having got the open back headphones makes a big difference if you got to wear headphones for a long time.
Oh yeah.
You don't
That's what I have.
get nearly as much heat. Right?
So much,
Yeah.
so nice.
It really is.
I can wear
now that
these
I've done
headphones
it, I'll
all
never
day.
buy another pair that it's not open back.
Yeah, mine are
I-
open
I
Turtle
can't.
Beach.
I can't deal with open backed.
No, that said, you do have to be careful with the open back headphones because if you're in my case using the condenser microphone, if your headphones are up loud enough, the microphone can pick up the headphones.
Pick it up. Mhm.
Which I've encountered a few times, but of course, then you've also had to be a bit more conscious if you don't live by yourself. Maybe you don't want to be blasting music at full volume, or
But if you're using a condenser microphone, you don't have to be right up on it, though. So
that's
it should
also
be
true.
shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah, I'm using Samsung AirPods.
That said, you will not convince me ever that your AirPod Pros sound nearly as good as my headphones. They just
No.
don't.
Yeah,
No, they don't.
There's no way they could. I
Yeah.
mean,
there is no way.
I spent $600 on just 2 speakers. You spent $600 on 2 speakers plus a Bluetooth controller.
this is a $500 set right,
Yeah.
that I'm wearing on my
Even- even
I'm pretty sure
those-
the sound of these is pretty good. I've listened to music through them. It actually sounds pretty damn good.
Let's
I
be
love the
clear.
padding
My
on top.
headphones probably aren't as good as your or Josh's, but they
You really don't
AirPods
need to
Pro.
spend hundreds of dollars on headphones. I've got sets of headphones that are $30-$40 that sound pretty amazing as well. I mean,
Well, it's a good idea
depends.
to spend a little bit of money sometimes.
if you're an audiophile and you
Yeah.
really care, especially about the way your music sounds, then people will spend a little extra money, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, that said, the only reason I got these headphones is because I got them on one hell of a deal that it was I got them through a trade, so it's not like I actually spent money on them. But even then, it's worthwhile to experiment with like more expensive headphones because you really do get what you paid for up to like a certain point. So rather than spending $5 on a pair of headphones from like the dollar store, maybe spend $30 or $40 on a pair of headphones.
Oh yeah,
It's a big difference.
it's a huge difference.
And I'm talking about headphones with the actual wire, not the wireless ones.
Yeah.
Because there are some
There's some
wireless
latency
headphones
issues with
there's
with
latency
wireless.
issues, and then there's just like overall sound quality issues, and then you have to deal with like how they decided to tune that as well. Because my biggest complaint about a lot of earbuds in general is that they're just tuned way too much for bass, and I don't really listen to music. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and talk shows. So that much bass is terrible.
I first thing I did, I disabled bass on these.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a wireless. So first thing I did, I
speaking is-
disabled the bass, and I set up everything to be as good as possible. So latency isn't an issue for me.
Yeah.
And quality is top notch. These are like top of the line Samsung, Sony headphones, wireless with noise canceling, all of that crap in there.
Yeah.
But you know what's cool about the AirPods though from Apple is that when you eventually lose your hearing, you can flip the switch and use them as a hearing aid.
That is
Right? No
actually kind of
thanks.
convenient.
Yeah,
That,
in the
clarity
chat,
mode.
Well,
in the chat, Johnny
could
was saying,
could use that today.
hold on
or
just a
this
second.
week.
Yeah, in the chat, Johnny was saying he doesn't, he's uncomfortable with people buying expensive headphones just to listen to, compressed music like on YouTube. And I agree. There's a lot of people that spend a lot of money on really expensive headphones, really expensive speakers to listen to their MP3 collection,
I mean,
which is not, it's really compressed audio. That's not high quality audio.
Well,
Obviously, you need to.
I spent a lot of money on my headphones, but I did it for a reason.
I still buy
Yeah.
CDs.
There are some YouTube channels who really do pay attention to sound, because I have a surround sound system that I sometimes watch in the living room on TV. And I'll tell you, there are some people like you'd notice, and I'm like, wow, this person really thought about this. They really put effort and quality into their video.
Yeah, because the way that the YouTube transcoder works is that it's more likely to compress the video than the actual sound itself. So
Correct.
So if as long as you're uploading like at least 320 kilobit sound, you're probably going to be fine on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as far as audio files, obviously compressed formats like MP3, that's not what you should be playing. Stick to FLAC.
Or
Oh, great idea.
go
This
buy
is
the
what I
CD
do.
off the store shelf.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
well,
obviously, if you still have a CD player, that would be.
I did I do. Yeah, FLAC. That definitely is a high quality. You'll pay for it in hard drive space, but
Oh
it's
yes,
worth it.
but it's not compressed. I mean, that's the point. Is it's a
Exactly.
And if you get a FLAC and a WAV file, the only difference between the FLAC and WAV file is that the FLAC is actually going to be smaller, but that's just because the white space in the music is just no data. So why would you allocate the file space for it?
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is that it's not so much of an issue now as it was maybe 20 years ago. But the other thing too is that it was either an article or video somebody did recently where they were talking about how MP3s are kind of considered out of date at this point, and that we need to do something better.
Yeah,
But it's
I
such
agree.
a standard now.
Yeah.
But
Well,
what quality is that MP3? Is it 192? Is it 300?
Yeah, I
We,
mean,
no Tax Allowed podcast does low quality streams of 96.
96. Yeah, I was about to say
Hey,
most people
it
that are
works.
compressing, using MP3, they're trying to get the files as small as possible. So
Well,
it's
something that
But
I've
we do offer a 320, so that's a top of the line quality, at least for MP3. But it is locked behind a paywall, so you can check out No Tax Allowed Patreon for that. We are trying to move out of cloud, so we need lots of money.
Yeah. So the biggest thing though is that if you're using like FLAC specifically, you have to remember that FLAC, while it's a free and open source format and it should technically just work everywhere, Wave has a bit more device support than FLAC does. So it's worthwhile to just run the FFmpeg conversion script.
I've never run into an issue with FLAC not working. The
it's a
only
lot
issues I
easier
have
nowadays.
is all the proprietary Apple formats. Like I can't stand that crap. Of
Yeah.
course, I'm not. You guys know how I feel about Apple anyway, for various reasons.
Thankfully, there's a tool called Knock that's no longer distributed, but if you can find a download link, go ahead and download it, and that can strip that. A lot of that,
let's not talk
crap
about that
out
on
of it.
YouTube.
There's a good question for the panel that says personal guidelines for donating to FOSS projects. They did a one-time donation to free file sync.
What was the question? What are your personal guidelines for donating to false? Oh, yeah. I mean, the things that I use on a regular basis and depend on, those are typically what I try to give money to. So
Yeah,
for me,
I personally,
things I've supported over the years, OBS, obviously I use, every time I make a video or every time I stream, GIMP, Kdenlive, which I can't give money directly to Kdenlive, but you can give it to the KDE project. On Patreon, I supported Arco Linux for years, and now, unfortunately, no longer around as of, past couple of weeks. which we should actually get to, the end of Arco Linux, because I know Steve is going to have a lot of thoughts about that.
Arco Linux, yes. Thank you for mentioning that. Everybody knows that Zero Linux started off as being an Arco Linux spinoff, but then spun up into becoming its own thing. But I still give full credit to Eric because of the videos he keeps pushing out on YouTube. I keep checking them, and whenever I'm stuck somewhere, I'm sure I'll find an answer on his channel. So I still credit him. Without him, Zero Linux wouldn't have existed and wouldn't have been what it is today. Like, I'm going to give you a simple example. Like right now, Calamares is having an issue with one of its modules, where you create your user and your password and whatnot. This module is currently broken, especially on Wayland, because Zero Linux finally is shifting to full Wayland live ISO installed system. Even if you select auto login, you're going to be on Wayland. But X11 is not going anywhere. It's staying there as a backup, but it's no longer going to be actively used. But because I use Wayland, I'm encountering this issue on Calamares. So I came up with the idea to switch the module from users to users queue. Queue means QML. So I'm using the QML version of the user thing, and it doesn't have any issues. So I switched to that, and I recommended everyone switches to it as well on the Calamares discussion group, and Endeavor is switching to it, Kashi is switching to it, a lot of them are switching to it now. But we wouldn't have figured that, we wouldn't have seen this issue if it weren't for Eric. So I credit him. I will forever credit him. He's a brilliant mind. Now he's still pumping out videos on YouTube, but no longer as a maintainer, but as a user. And he's teaching people how to convert Arco back to Arch. And if they still want some of the Arco flair, he's leaving his scripts out on GitHub. He's calling them Eric Dubois scripts, or you can see them as educational scripts. And he's teaching people how to transform Arch Linux to whatever they want. So kudos to him for continuing the work as a user, not as a maintainer. Now he no longer has the pressure. Now he can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. No more pressure of a distro.
Well, I can understand because they're until recently, they got up to building like 26 or 28 ISOs or whatever every month. Different.
That really doesn't matter once you have automation. You just update things and things build.
Yeah, but people have to test those things.
Yeah, well, that's what Zero Linux is. That's what Zero Linux is currently doing. I have 2 ISOs with a third one coming. And I'm not going to say what it's going to be using because I want to leave it as a surprise. People are their jaw is going to drop once it's done. But no,
you were talking really good about Awesome Window Manager the other day, so it's not going to shock anybody that's what's.
Yeah, you can.
Are you saying that the Awesome Window Manager is awesome?
Yeah. No, but it's going to be at the end of the day, it's going to be 3 different ISOs, but I automate all that. Like BigPot said, it's basically using the same profile folder, just modifying a few things. Like for KDE, it adds KDE packages, for GNOME, and for the third one, the third packages. So yeah, so it's not a very hard thing to do. But some people ask the question, why don't we make one ISO with a section in Calamares to let the user select what they want to install? It's a good idea, but it's not a viable idea, because if you do that, you will need a desktop environment for the live ISO and whatever the user will end up with at the end. So it's going to bloat the system. And even if
it's not a net install, then you've got to actually have all that on the ISO. It'd be a gigantic ISO. Yeah.
Exactly. So opting for the net install, not everyone will have internet, or
Right.
they will have, some people will have issues connecting to the internet on the live ISO. So it adds too many variables. Like just like recently, what happened was CachyOS pointed out the fact that their ISOs are not booting on 50 series NVIDIA cards, simply because the 50 series require, it's mandatory to have the open kernel modules on the ISO. But by doing so, you're throwing out the people who have older gen cards that are still more than the people who have more recent cards. So you're leaving out those people. So Zero Linux opted to use Nouveau on the open kernel drivers that come with the kernel, but with Mesa. But currently Mesa does not support the 50 series cards. So I had instead of going through this whole mess of what driver should I include on the ISO to make it bootable? Do I put this one and leave the others out, or this one and leave the small people? No, I just put up a message on the wiki saying, okay, people with the 50 series cards, few of you that you are, you won't be able to boot Zero Linux. Please wait for Mesa 25.1 when it will be supported again. That's it. I avoided a whole mess with just 2 lines. So there's a lot of decisions that some distros make that add more complexity to the whole situation. Why not just keep it open and let the user do whatever they want afterwards? Not force things on the user from the live ISO onwards. So I'm like, total freedom. That's the philosophy of Zero Linux. It's forever going to be that. I'm never going to force users to anything. That's why my KDE install, you install the system, you got nothing. Like same with my GNOME. GNOME, you got terminal and file manager, and that's it. You don't have anything. I don't add anything. So, and some people tell me, why are you creating a distro if you're going to give us what Arch install is going to give us? I'm not giving you just, and I want to clear this out once and for all. Zero Linux is not just a rice. It began that way at first, but it's no longer that. There's so much going on under the hood. I don't touch the system, but the only thing is I remove. I do basically, in simple terms, I do what Chris Titus Tech does to Windows. I debloat the desktop environment because if you install KDE as a whole, the entire KDE stack, you're going to end up with a lot of bloat and a lot of running services in the background. I tweaked KDE.
Well, you're talking about the Arch install script, the Python script.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if you do the command line installation, it's just installing what you select.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the Arch install.
You're talking about the automated. Yeah, that thing's a mess. It really is. I don't. Yeah. I'm not a fan of the Arch install script at all.
It's Zero Linux is basically a lot of tweaks and optimizing the desktop environment that I ship, GNOME and KDE for now. I optimize them so people don't have all the issues that they encounter, and they don't end up with, like KDE, for example. If you install the whole stack, you end up with over 170 services running in the background.
Well, what people should do if they're going to use if you're going to use the Arch install script, still just install a base system and then add whatever KDE packages you want instead of
exactly. And you touched on something really important. I just re-released my desktop environment installer script, which does exactly that. I went with a fine-tooth comb through all the KDE packages and GNOME ones, and XFCE and Hyperland and Cosmic, because it offers all these for users to install, but an optimized version of all these with no racing whatsoever. They're going to end up with vanilla anything they select, but a vanilla version that is well optimized. So KDE, for example, if they install it with my desktop environment installer script, they're going to end up with down to 60 services from 170. So everything is optimized. I handpicked all the packages from the meta packages that they offer. Instead of offering the entire meta package, I handpicked the packages to end up with a optimized system. and that's it. So it's to bypass the Arch install profiles because they suck. So they can either go the distro route or for a full customized thing. And the script is not the distro. The distro is completely different. The script is just a base to start off with, and then you'll have to do a lot of work to shape it to whatever you want. Whereas with Zero Linux, the distro, it's the same defaults as we call them in the Linux sphere. So you got so the distro is donation based. The script is free of charge. You can just grab it from GitHub, configure it to your liking, and go from there. It's for the people who like scripting. And I whipped up that script. It took me around 18 hours. So I wrote it from scratch.
Really, there's only one. There's only one program and service that needs to be running. As long as you just build a plain Arch ISO and make sure Emacs is on the system out of the box, all is good.
Yep.
Speaking of, I wanted to fork your script, DT, but then something came to my mind. I was like, it's a bit like a distro, because if I fork your script, I'll be putting in my options, my way of installing Arch Linux. It's not giving it's still taking away a certain amount of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
That's to me, that felt like stepping too far away from the philosophy of Zero Linux. That's why I chose to fork it for myself, for my own personal usage, but not make it public. Plus, it's your project. To me, although it's what FOSS is, to me, it's like, especially that Zero Linux is what it is. I didn't want people to say, because it has happened before, he stole somebody else's work and he's trying to make money out of somebody else's work, and just avoid that. Like I'm avoiding the browser wars. That's why I'm including Falcon and Epiphany.
It's a little bit of bash scripting. I mean, it's
not complicated.
And you're not stealing anything. It's literally the commands you would enter in the TTY to install Arch. If anything, I stole from the Arch Linux install guide off the Arch wiki. I mean, if you want to put it like that. It's all free though, right? It's all free software. Even the Arch installation guide, I'm joking, but I'm sure that thing's licensed under the Creative Commons. Like all of this stuff is free for everybody to use. Anybody that claims that you're stealing something, tell them to go jump and rotate, Steve.
What I'm saying is not everyone is going to see it that way. Only us Linux nerds would know that. But the normal person who's going to come and see your script and see my script side by side, they're going to say, hey, he stole that person's. That will not stop them. It has
in the meantime,
before.
Steve, just to let you know, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fork Zero Linux's script, and I'm going to replace all the Zero Linux logos with just circles with a big giant cross, and I'm going to make them as red as I possibly can. And I'm going to call it Yasada Linux.
You're free to do so. Okay, I'm giving it to you. People, you are watching and listening to this. I'm giving Josh free
reign. He can do whatever.
To turn it to Gentoo.
All right. Well,
so it's no license.
Now that I know that I'm allowed to do that, therefore I could comply with the license. I'm probably gonna go and work on that. But in the meantime, I've got to take off because I got Sunday things I got to take care of.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, Josh.
See ya.
Well, sorry, I went on a rant about. I didn't want to go around Zero Linux, but literally about Arco.
Yeah, like the install script, or even the ISO build, the Arch ISO. Like anybody can go grab any of that off my GitLab, and do whatever the hell they want with it.
I have
their own distro. They can copy everything I did and just change the name, fork it, call it a different project. Hey, run with it. I mean,
I have
no warranties.
No warranty. I wanted to.
Well, I licensed everything that was originally, is something of mine. I think I licensed everything under the GPL v3, anything that maybe I borrowed at an existing license. You might find some like MIT license stuff somewhere in some repository. Most of it's going to be GPL. So it's all free software, though. It's all take it, do whatever you want with it. I don't care.
Yeah, I have a recommendation for you, DT,
Mhm.
for your script. Because my DE install script and my new updater script, because I created a small update script, it's really neat. They have this logic where if you're running in a VM, then do this. So if you want, you can add to your script. If running in a VM, install each like if you're running in QEMU, install the VDA agent and the QEMU guest utils. If you are running in VMware, then it's a simple command. If systemd vert check or detect, and according to what it detects, it will install the according packages. So they end up with the ability to maximum 1080p their resolution.
Yeah, the script actually already does that, Steve.
Does that? I didn't see it when I was reading it.
There's a check in it to see if you're running QEMU, VMware, or VirtualBox, and if it does, it installs the appropriate guest utils or whatever you need for.
Yeah, this is I added it to all my scripts because it's especially for Hyperland in my DE install script. It adds a message also saying for Hyperland and Cosmic, you need to pass through your GPU for best results. Otherwise, even if you enable 3D acceleration, that alone is not enough. So I use a lot of logic. I'm using a lot of logic in my scripts these days because I learned it new. I'm applying it everywhere.
Right.
So
yeah, I haven't done much.
Scripting is fun.
Yeah, I haven't done much with the DTOS ISO or the install script here in the last 5 or 6 days. Kind of took a break from it because there for a couple of weeks at least. I probably built like 100 different ISOs testing things. I worked a lot on that script because I got people requesting things, and I tried to. I got a lot done with it though, in the little bit of time I put in with it. But I'll get back to fixing some more stuff this week. I'm going to jump back into the DTOS install script.
As long as you don't start offering different desktop environments, you're good.
I'm not. Yeah, I've already, and that was one of the things. We had this discussion, I think, on the last patrons chat, Steve, where I said, too many distros try to do too much, or I was specifically talking about installers like Calamares. It's too big of a program. And that was kind of the birth of that script. It's like, hey, I'll install Arch for you, but I'm going to make some choices. You're just getting grub. I don't care what bootloader you want. You're getting grub.
You can customize after that.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to recommend. There's this logic I just added the other day. If users selected to give them the freedom to select systemd if they wanted to. If they did, then it would skip the grub stuff.
Yeah, file systems. I didn't want people to have. I wanted people to have a choice because I know that for like 99% of desktop Linux users, they're either wanting Btrfs or Extend 4. So that's what I gave you. Now, if you're one of those 1% that want XFS or ZFS or something even more exotic than those, guess what? Do the command line Arch install and install that crap. But for me to try to script that, especially with something like ZFS, which isn't even in the kernel, right?
It's experimental at best.
And it would be a nightmare for me to script things in such a way. If people made this choice, now I've got a million commands I've got to do to get ZFS working. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. I ran Extend 4 Btrfs. So
I did ZFS on Ubuntu on production for a while, and I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, well, their installer automates the process. Right? So
correct, but it's still tagged as experimental though.
Right.
So
yeah, with the licensing and the fact that it's not in the kernel, it makes it a big pain.
It does, especially if you run into a technical issue. But there's a lot of guys out there. I mean, you just have to prune the backups.
And
that's really the only thing I had to do.
And I knew when I limited people to just extend forward Btrfs, I'm going to have the occasional person, hey, where's EFS? Where's XFS? Where's whatever, Riser? Whatever. Somebody else. It's like, hey, you don't have to install this via the
Just to be a
script.
contrarian.
You could just go to the command line, read the Arch installation guide, and, do what you want. I'm just trying to simplify things for people that want to take it. If you don't want to take it, that's fine. But I'm not trying to be all things to all people, because then I'm going to end up with the same problem the Arch install script has. It tries to do way too damn much, and it doesn't work half the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Why do I always end up being part of the minority? I'm part of the 1% who uses XFS. Yeah,
it's big. It still gets used a lot on servers. But again, what I'm doing is just putting ISO out there for people that want a desktop, right? So
Was there
if it was a server
development
installation, it would make sense to add it, I guess.
Was there ever any development efforts towards the XT5 or anything like that, or was that just?
I mean, there was. I mean, I don't know if anybody's really working on it, but it's.
It's receiving updates. It's receiving updates. XFS progs and XFS are receiving some updates, but
yeah, I mean, 4 has been out for a long time.
A long time, and I know 5 has been what was in the works at one point. But you're right, I haven't heard any development about it, so I don't know if.
Maybe they all are on Btrfs and all that stuff like that.
Yeah, I would think so, because Btrfs gets updated a lot, and they're always pushing new things.
Yeah, so is Extend 4, but Extend 4 is starting to get old in the tooth.
Yeah. Well, it does what it needs to do. A lot of this, some of these projects that seem like they don't see much action is they already do what they were designed to do, and there's really not much need to change anything.
Yep. So, but have you seen the new rant from Linus Torvalds around Bcachefs?
Well, we talked a little bit.
I saw a posting of it, but I didn't listen to it.
Yeah, I haven't listened to it either, but I know we talked a little bit about some kernel drama last time. Is this new kernel drama?
Yeah, it's about
because they've been accepting the uploads for it.
Yeah, no, it's about case insensitivity in the file systems.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't. What's the deal with the case insensitivity?
Is Bcachefs and other projects are using case insensitive code, which is causing a lot of issues in the kernel. So he called them. His words were, "You act like script kiddies in diapers."
Wow.
His words.
Yeah.
Yeah. His words,
Ballsy.
not mine. Yeah.
So it's just Linus being Linus.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why I haven't watched it yet.
I can't really. Yeah. I have no comments on any of that, other than obviously sometimes Linus acts less than
Linus.
professional, right?
Yeah.
Just at some point, though, I do worry about him, because sometimes when he gets really angry at folks, he is going to, at some point, be his own undoing. Like, he really needs to calm down sometimes.
But it sort of shows where his tenacity to make the Linux kernel came from, though.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody probably pissed him off, and he's like, "Well, okay, I'll do my own."
It was literally a protest kernel.
Yeah, it's a protest kernel. You're right. Yeah, because yeah.
So at least he's consistent over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole operating system is essentially a protest.
When you've been doing it for 34 years or whatever it's been now,
yeah.
and you have to deal with people who are not as experienced and may have had a weird, path in their programming prowess, that, I can kind of understand where he comes from, especially when reading some of the responses. But yeah, there's a professionalism aspect of it, because this isn't a college project anymore,
Yeah.
Right. But when he's doing interviews like TED interviews or any kind of conference interviews, you can tell as soon as he sits down, he's like, man, I really don't want to do this. Can I just go home? You know, he's just got that look.
Yeah, I think that's more
Um,
recent though too, though. Not so much like 10, 15 years ago, right?
I don't know. He's always looked like he had this
He's
disdain
okay
for
in front of
interviews.
people. He's probably a little introverted, and not somebody that wants to. He's a programmer. I mean, that's what he
Yeah.
started out. He just wants to code, right? And he probably now having to be essentially a CEO. It's probably not the most comfortable thing for him.
Right.
Yep.
He's not as bad as Stallman in front of people, though. Stallman really just...
Oh, people don't want to hear Stallman talk.
Ooh.
As soon as they see him, people probably leave the room.
He's really awkward.
That's why he's a college professor or whatever, or involved in a collegiate or an academic institution, is because that's where.
Yeah, but when I think of some of my professors, they were all weird. They were all strange. It's different in an academic setting.
Sure is.
Do we have a Rust file system yet?
Oh, it's coming along. It's coming
I don't
along.
Seriously?
To go with the Rust kernel.
Yeah, with Ubuntu wanting to replace the core utils with Rust utils.
Yeah. You know what? That's another protest project. UUtils from actually the original core utils was a protest project. It was screw you Unix. It was let's do our own thing. Yeah.
Well, now Ubuntu wants to. Hey, everything is becoming Rust. Let's turn everything into Rust.
Yeah, it's very strange. Especially
just like they
move.
tried to turn everything into snaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I won't use snaps.
I use Ubuntu, and snaps are such a thing that I don't even really deal with or consider. It's like I mostly use Flatpak or the Debian package management stuff.
Well, I mean, if they wouldn't have in the beginning said, you're going to use snaps whether you like it or not, I would have probably tried snaps more. But when they did that, it's like, nope.
Well, no, I can understand that. I have a similar mindset of no, don't you can't tell me what to do, kind of mentality. But it's one of those things where no, I mean, on occasion I'll use it, but I find myself using snaps more on servers than I do a desktop environment. So
I do too, actually. Yeah, snaps on the servers are great. Now I install Ubuntu on a lot of machines. The only things that really get installed as a snap are the browsers, Firefox and Chromium, I believe.
Thunderbird, I think, also comes default sometimes.
For very few people will need Thunderbird or any desktop.
My only problem with the Snap browser stuff is trying to use something like KeyPass or any other thing because of the containerization nature of it. It can't reach that without some kind of extensive workaround. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just do whatever is the simplest way.
Yeah. And for folks that would use something like KeyPass, you're probably more of a nerd. You know how to uninstall the snap and install whatever. From like normie users, none of this is a real issue. It's just an issue for nerds. So.
And speaking of, we need to stop this whole hate against different package formats. There's a reason they exist, and we shouldn't shit talk people who use various forms of various formats. Every person likes what they like. Why are we shit talking people who like Flatpaks, who like snaps, who don't like snaps? We're all entitled to like whatever we like. Why do we have to receive hate for that? Why? Do you?
That's just kids on the internet, though. That's
just
not,
trolleys.
Yeah.
Trolleys be
and honestly, the people, because the people that love to trash snaps and Flatpaks and app images, those three especially. Most of them don't know what they actually do. Most of them don't even know what kind of problems those things were invented to try to solve. Like we just talked about snaps on the server. Most people don't know that that's actually why snaps exist. It was really for IoT devices.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why Canonical, that's the space that Canonical was trying to, that's where they make their money. Is a lot in servers and enterprise, and they're not making money on Linux desktop.
It makes complete sense for servers.
Right.
I mean, I have no problem with it.
And
So
app
that's why I
images are
prefer-
very unique because it's literally a portable package you can put on a USB stick and carry around. I mean, there's a use case for that. I know so the people that trash these things, sometimes I don't think they understand that there are people and use cases where these things really make sense.
Well, app images are modeled after, how Macintosh,
Right.
and
the
Apple
Mac does it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Real quick, there was a super chat in the YouTube. It says, what streaming software and plugins do you recommend for optimal streaming experience? I use OBS, but it seems like it has a lot of issues with memory leaks. For me, I don't know about you guys. I don't stream a lot, a couple times a month at most. But as far as streaming to YouTube, I've never experienced anything that I would consider a memory leak. Right now, I am only using 6 gigs of RAM to stream. And of course, most of that's being taken up by OBS, but 6 gigs of RAM is nothing. And plus, I've got Zoom, and we know because I checked HTOP, Zoom's using about 1 gig of RAM. So really, probably 4.5 gigs or so is really what OBS is using. So I haven't noticed any memory leaks. As far as plugins and things, I don't really use a lot of plugins with OBS. The only one I have installed, I think I made a video about it a while back. You'll have to go search for it. I do have a plugin where I can zoom in on the desktop if I need to, which for mostly what I do with Linux, I don't bother with it because a lot of times if I'm in a terminal or in Emacs, they have their own zoom functions, so I don't have to zoom in, through a plugin with OBS, but it is there if I need it. Any thoughts on OBS or memory leaks or anything?
I haven't. I stream.
Go ahead.
I stream gaming a lot with friends on Discord and through OBS onto multiple platforms, and most of the time it's I rarely ever have a drop frame. It could also be if you're recording and streaming at the same time though too.
Oh yeah, because that's going to it's going to take a lot of CPU, especially if you're doing
what I'll do is I'll stream instead of record and stream. And then I'll just download
I never stream and record at the same time because that's just taxing on the CPU. And I've got a good machine. If you got a potato, don't do it.
Yeah, and especially if somebody's trying to do it from laptops, you have to remember that a laptop is essentially like half to 3/4 that of a desktop.
Yeah.
It's not like if you have for example, you have a 3070 graphics card in your laptop, it's really a 3060 desktop. Performance.
Yeah. Well, I can speak firsthand because we broadcast mass every Sunday on Facebook for the elderly people who cannot attend. We record and stream at the same time on a system that I think it's a Ryzen 5 3600 with a 1050 Ti in it. It's a pretty old GPU, but it's not very taxing. If you're running Windows, I don't know, maybe Windows manages that better or whatever, but we use OBS, of course, and we never encountered any major issues there, mainly because it's NVIDIA doing the encoding and everything. Right. So the CPU is barely being used at 15-20%.
Yeah, and it will vary on what kind of graphics card you have. Are you doing any kind of CPU or GPU encoding or not?
If the GPU is taken over, the CPU is chilling.
Yeah.
So that's why we opted to. I built the system for them. They bought it from me. So I gave them the same CPU I used to have. And the 1050 Ti because they couldn't afford anything more with the GPU pricing the way it is now. So they've been happy with it ever since. So cool. As long as the GPU is doing the encoding, the CPU is chilling. We can do whatever we want because we need to control the various. We shoot the mass with security cameras. the IPZ cameras, and we need enough processes from the CPU to open multiple tabs in a browser to control the various cameras. So I made sure everything works, and it's been working for the past 3 years. Awesome.
Yep, Dad brought his pet.
Yeah. A possum? Is that a possum or a what?
No, that was
That's
definitely a
raccoon.
raccoon. Baby
A
possums.
baby raccoon.
I've seen baby possums. They are really
Yeah, I'm
tiny
getting
and they're
ready
really
to-
pink and hairless. they're almost
I'm
like
getting
baby
ready
rats.
to take it to a rehab person. It's the third one I've had to take to her. It's the last one she'll take too. She said, "No more."
Oh boy, I wish I could have pets, but my dad's allergic to them.
Yeah, I can't. I'm not. I mean, if I had to, I will raise it, but I don't have to. So, gladly.
But yeah, the way things are, like I had to leave various servers recently on Discord because of what you said, you said in one of your shorts, DT. Because on a lot of servers, people start spewing out, no, don't talk to that guy. He's not good. He will tell you this, this, and that. They keep telling us who to talk to or who not to talk to. So
Yeah, Discord
like,
is one of
yeah.
those things that for certain use cases, Discord could be cool. Like if you wanted to have a weekly meeting with some folks or something like that, but just having a 24-hour kind of chat room and calling it like Linux support, you already know there's going to be problems. It's guaranteed. There's going to be some drama always. And I just think a lot of these open source software projects, like they should know better. Like going into this, you know there's going to be drama with this thing. Why even have the Discord?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like you said,
That's like saying, hey, let's all meet on Twitter and let's try to get along when we get there. Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, it's like saying it's like when we tie that video to another video you made about forums, web forums, like using Discord as a web forum. For me, I have no other choice because that's what people prefer. But because I used to have a forum, I used to run, and I wanted to recommend the MyBB to you because it's free, open source. They will never charge you for a penny for it. It's a basically a PHP based forum. It's very easy to set up. Most web hosts have it in their free installer, web installer. You just click it, create the database, the password, and whatnot, and you're up and running. But I used to run a MyBB forum. I ran it for 2 years. In the 2 years, I've had nothing but spammers, ads.
Well, that's
pornographic subjects,
and it doesn't matter what you throw up on the internet; it's going to be attacked by spammers. You just have to fight that.
I've thought about this a lot because I've been on the internet for over 30 years, and the thing that there's a particular use for whatever you're using. If you're using a forum, that's where you need to have some semi-static stuff that you can easily search. Because if you have anything that's like a social media type thing, like IRC or Discord or whatever, you're going to get lost in so many messages that unless there's a search function,
the search engines don't index like Discord chats. So that's part of the problem. It's like I can't just Google something and get the answer if it was on Discord.
Yep, exactly. And the only problem that I had with IRC is that if you disconnect, you can't see what was going on. So you have to use like a ZNC bouncer or something like that, or keep something connected that you remote into.
Well, now IRC's essentially dead ever since the biggest server or whatever changed hands a couple years ago.
That was almost 10 years ago now, I think.
No, it was just a couple of years ago. Because I had an IRC channel.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It was. I was thinking of because Discord's been around for about 10 years. I think this year they're celebrating their 10th anniversary.
But I mean, IRC was on life support anyway, even before that. But that essentially that it was over at that point.
Yeah,
IRC,
I mean,
just consider it dead.
yeah, I mean, it's still used for specific use cases with,
Yeah.
I know
But
like
nobody's there.
some of
Like
the open
so few
source stuff
people use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a neat thing that a neat feature that Discord is just announced like a month ago or something. Now you can create an invite only server, as long as it's a community based server. You can set it up as invite only, so people who download your script and whatever, they can have a link to that Discord server and nobody else, because Zero Linux server is that way. And I've hadn't had any toxicity on that server ever since I did it that way. Only the good people are joining.
Yeah.
Some people join and they never talk, but I don't get shit anymore.
Yeah,
it's
you
just
can set
very
up
hard to have a channel specifically about a Linux distro or a piece of open source software, and then have people sit there 24 hours a day. They're going to talk about other things, and some of them things that they're going to talk about.
Well,
Not gonna be
thankfully on my
appropriate.
server, on my server, I don't have that. I have a lot of good people.
And if you enable images on that Discord channel, let me tell you, eventually somebody's going to post some porn. Like, just get ready for it.
And since my server is invite only, I created something called a forum channel where, and that was recommended by a good friend of mine, a good supporter of mine, and I thank him for everything. Thank you, my friend. But it was recommended, and I'm not. And the nice thing about a forum, it acts like a forum. They create a thread with a topic with their issue, and then they can come back to it. They can bookmark it. They can come back to it at any time instead of having it get lost in all the chat.
No.
So I'm managing my server so well that I'm not getting any shit. So I'm glad about that.
You know, I wanted to mention something to you, Steve, because the other day you said something, and I kind of thought, oh, nah, Steve, you're wrong. It'll be fine. You said it was the live stream, the first one I did about creating the DTOS install script.
Yeah.
I said, hey, this is only going to work on UEFI because I'm creating GPT tables.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I'm just putting it out there. I'm going to put it out there as a warning. I even wrote it on the SourceForge page and everything. And you said in the chat, DT, you really think people are going to listen to that warning?
Yeah.
I said, of course they are, Steve. You know how many people tried to install it using legacy BIOS and then came back complaining to me that it didn't?
I told you.
I
told you.
So what I ended up doing, I actually went back and I added a safety check in the script. It checks if you're actually on an EFI machine, because if you are, it creates a /var/sys/EFI.
Yeah.
It creates some file on the system. Hey, check if that file's there. If it is, let them go ahead and run the script. If it isn't, exit out of the script and give them a warning saying, "Hey,
exactly."
idiot.
That's one of the logics. That's one of the logics I added to my DE install script, because I want to make sure they're running it on a base install of Arch. So it creates a tmp.log file.
Mm-hmm.
If it sees a DE already installed, it will take that binary of that desktop environment or window manager, rename it to a .de_log, and it's going to tell the user, hey, there's a DE or WM already installed. I'm exiting. Goodbye.
All right. But yeah, I thought about that the other day when I had to make that fix. I was like, Steve told me this was going to be a problem. I didn't believe him. And it's like, but all right, guys, well, let's go ahead and get a last word from everybody. So, Big Pod, I don't know, he's been silent for a while. If he's there, give us a last word if you are. If not, we'll move on.
Well, check out No Tax Allowed on YouTube.
Yep, you do. You guys are doing a show today. When's the next show?
Tomorrow. And yeah, as I said, we're trying to move things to be all self-hosted. But for that, we need a load of money.
Same here.
All right, thanks, Big Pod. Aliens, I don't know if you're mic'd up. If you are, you want to give us a last word? And no mic, okay, appreciate that. Steve, give us a last word.
Okay, my last word is going to be this. Do not spew your poisonous hate if somebody disagrees with you. They have their own opinions, respect each other's opinions, keep it a friendly Linux community, and stop the hate. And go on a scripting for all the true Linux nerds out there. Scripting is awesome. You can create scripts for almost anything. Scripting got me out of a lot of how am I going to call them? A lot of complicated issues. All I had to do was, thanks to my scripts, I was able to get myself out of it, and they're very useful. In 15 minutes, I whipped up an update script that supports AUR, native, Flatpaks, firmware. I wrote that and I whipped that up in 15 minutes.
Yep.
Go on a scripting spree. Have fun. Enjoy FOSS. Enjoy Linux.
No.
And enjoy customizing your desktops.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be shocked how much even some simple one-liners, how useful they can be. Add those things to your bash RC. Add an alias for things you do all the time that are repetitive, that are lengthy commands. Hey, add an alias that's a one-word thing you can type, especially if it's some. Yeah, just to reduce your work. You'd be surprised, how useful some of that stuff can be.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Linux can be so much fun. Just if you get frustrated for any reason, have Windows on the side to get your frustrations out. But keep coming back to Linux until you feel more comfortable. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Steve. George, give us a last word.
Yeah, thanks again for having these. I enjoy them. Anybody out there that supports, everybody should go out there and support the software they like, and support creators and people who are trying to spread the word. So such as No Text Allowed, of course, DT, and even Zero Linux. I mean,
even that one, huh?
everybody, look, everybody has, hey, sometimes, for me, it's like, I'll support something, and then sometimes they may not. I buy a lot of games because I want to support the studio, not because I have time to play them. So, it's one of those things where, just it helps to participate. Don't just be a bystander.
Yeah, and DT, welcome to the maintainers world. Even though it's not a full-on distro, it's still maintaining.
Yeah, but again, I'm structuring it in such a way. I'm trying to limit what I have to do.
Yeah, just don't create a support anything. Just leave it as is. Let people figure it out.
Well, you know my rule, Steve. Anytime I get any kind of support request, like on GitLab or anywhere, I always give them 24 hours before I respond, because like 80% of the time, they'll already have solved their problem before I even need to respond. So I don't rush, right? So
I need to follow. I need to follow your guidance, because for me, for some reason, if somebody sends a support ticket or something, I need to reply immediately. I don't know why. But if I do immediately, we end up in a rigmarole, and then they end up solving it themselves.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, my last word is thanking you guys for hanging out with me on camera. Also, the folks on the YouTube chat, you guys were great. Good questions, comments, good discussions there. I also want to thank all the patrons that couldn't be with us on camera. So I'm going to show some names on the screen here. All these folks, great guys and gals that help support the channel. And other than that, everybody wave bye to YouTube.